My wife came home in a dress I'd never seen, laughed in my face, and told me she was going on a date. "Try not to be too jealous," she said with that cold smile. I should have exploded right there. Instead, I said something that made her freeze completely. What happened next would change everything, not just for us, but for people I'd never even met. Some secrets are bigger than marriage. Some lies destroy more than hearts. My name is Francis Donahue. I'm 44 years old, and I've spent the last 15 years running Deep Blue Adventures, a diving center on the coast of North Carolina. Built it from nothing after my Navy days, teaching folks to explore the underwater world while Gloria managed the books. We had what I thought was a solid marriage, 22 years of what I believed was partnership, trust, and love. That Tuesday evening changed everything. I was cleaning my diving gear in the garage when I heard her heels clicking across the kitchen floor. Unusual, since she typically wore sneakers around the house. When I walked inside, Gloria stood by the mirror adjusting a dress I'd never seen before. Black, figure-hugging, definitely not something she were to book club. "Going somewhere special?" I asked, wiping my hands on a towel. She turned, and that's when I saw it. That smile. Not the warm one I've fallen in love with, but something colder, sharper. Something that cut right through me. "I'm going on a date tonight," she said, like she was discussing the weather. "Try not to be too jealous, Francis." The words hit me like a rogue wave. I stood there, towel in hand, watching my wife of 22 years laugh at my stunned expression. Not a nervous laugh or an apologetic one. Pure amusement at my shock. "A date," I managed to say. "You heard me." Gloria grabbed her purse, checked her reflection one more time. "Don't wait up." I wanted to ask who, where, why, how long this had been going on. Instead, I heard myself say something that made her freeze mid-step toward the door. "Enjoy explaining that to your sister tomorrow." Her confidence faltered for just a second. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing," I said quietly. "Have fun." But it wasn't nothing. Gloria's sister Karen lived 3 blocks away and had a habit of dropping by unannounced. More importantly, Karen had been asking pointed questions about Gloria's book club meetings lately. Meetings that seemed to happen awfully often for a group that supposedly only read 1 book a month. After Gloria left, I sat in my recliner, staring at the wall. 22 years of marriage, and she just announced she was cheating like she was heading to the gym. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was how easy it seemed for her. How little our marriage apparently meant. I poured myself a bourbon and started thinking. As a dive instructor, I'd learned that panic underwater gets you killed. Stay calm, assess the situation, make a plan. The same principles applied here. By the time I finished my drink, I knew what I had to do. The next morning, Gloria acted like nothing had happened. She hummed while making coffee, asked if I'd seen the weather forecast, even kissed my cheek before I left for the dive center. If I hadn't watched her walk out in that black dress 12 hours earlier, I might have thought I'd imagined the whole thing. But I'm a methodical man. 20 years of Navy service and 15 years running a business teaches you to document everything. So when I got to Deep Blue Adventures, I started digging. First stop was our joint banking account. Gloria handled most of our finances, claiming she was better with numbers. Turns out she was better at hiding them too. 3 cash withdrawals in the past month, each for $300. Our credit card showed charges at restaurants I'd never been to, a hotel in Wilmington, and something called Intimate Apparel Boutique. My dive instructor certification required me to stay calm under pressure, but seeing those receipts felt like nitrogen narcosis, that dangerous euphoria that hits you too deep underwater. Everything became crystal clear and terrifying at the same time. I called our bank and requested detailed statements going back 6 months. Then I drove to the hotel in Wilmington and had a conversation with the front desk clerk, a young woman named Jennifer who recognized Gloria's photo immediately. "Oh, Mrs. Donahue," Jennifer said. "She's been here several times with her friend Marcus. Such a nice couple." Marcus. The name hit me like a depth charge. I knew exactly who that was. Marcus Webb had been my dive student 3 years ago. 40-something real estate agent, recently divorced, always hitting on the female customers. I'd banned him from the dive center after catching him taking photos of women in their wetsuits. Now he was taking photos of my wife in hotel rooms. Back at the shop, I pulled out my old Navy contacts. Tommy Rodriguez now worked for a private investigation firm in Charlotte. We'd saved each other's lives in the Persian Gulf, which meant he owed me a favor. "Francis, good to hear from you, brother," Tommy said when I called. "What's the situation?" I explained everything. The dates, the hotel, Marcus Webb. Tommy listened without interrupting, then gave me the advice that would change everything. "Don't confront her yet," he said. "Cheaters are like cornered animals. They'll destroy evidence and run. You need documentation. Photos, recordings, financial records. Build your case first. This isn't a military operation, Tommy." "Isn't it?" Tommy's voice turned serious. "Your wife's waging war on your marriage, and you're the only one who doesn't have ammunition. Time to arm up." That evening, I installed a small camera in our living room. Not to spy, but to protect myself. If Gloria was going to destroy our marriage, she wasn't going to destroy my reputation too. When she came home late again, claiming book club had run long, I just nodded and asked how the discussion went. "Fascinating topic," Gloria said, not meeting my eyes. "We talked about betrayal and relationships." I almost laughed at the irony. Instead, I kissed her goodnight and went to bed, where I lay awake planning my next move. Tomorrow, I'd start gathering the evidence that would end this charade once and for all. Tommy's investigation moved faster than I expected. By Friday, he'd uncovered something that made my blood run cold. Gloria hadn't just been cheating, she'd been systematically draining our assets. "Francis, you need to sit down for this," Tommy said over the phone. "Your wife took out a second mortgage on your dive center. 200 grand, using forged documents." The room spun around me. "That's impossible. I never signed anything." "She had help. Marcus Webb works for Coastal Realty, and they have connections with several mortgage brokers. Looks like someone fudged the paperwork." I gripped the phone tighter. "Where's the money?" "Gone. Transferred to an offshore account last month." "Francis, they're planning to disappear." That evening, Gloria came home carrying shopping bags from expensive stores. She bought new luggage, designer clothes, jewelry I couldn't afford on our legitimate income. The woman who used to clip coupons was spending money like water. "Special occasion?" I asked, watching her display her purchases. "A woman deserves nice things," Gloria said, holding up a silk dress. "You've been so focused on your little diving business, you forgot I have needs too." My little diving business. The one she just mortgaged without my knowledge. "Must have been expensive," I said calmly. She shrugged. "We can afford it. Business has been good, hasn't it?" I wanted to confront her right there, but Tommy's advice echoed in my head. "Build a case first." So I smiled and nodded, playing the oblivious husband while my world crumbled around me. That night, I called my attorney, Robertson. We'd served together in the Navy before he went to law school. I explained the situation, and Robert's response was immediate. "Francis, this is fraud. Criminal fraud. We need to freeze your assets immediately and contact the authorities." "What about Gloria? What about her?" "She committed multiple felonies. Forgery, fraud, theft. She's looking at serious prison time." By Sunday morning, I had emergency court orders freezing all our accounts and preventing any further property transfers. I also discovered something else. Gloria's mother, Elizabeth, had no idea what her daughter was planning. Elizabeth called me that afternoon, her voice shaky. "Francis, Gloria mentioned something about moving to Florida with a new friend. She asked me to wire her $10,000 for a business opportunity. Something doesn't feel right." I told Elizabeth everything. About Marcus, the affair, the stolen money. By the end of our conversation, she was crying and apologizing for her daughter's betrayal. "I raised her better than this," Elizabeth said. "What can I do to help?" That's when I knew I had an ally in the family. And that's when my plan truly began to take shape. Monday morning brought a revelation that changed everything. Tommy called with news that made my hands shake. "Francis, there's more. Gloria's been in contact with Detective Ray Morrison from Wilmington PD. They've been meeting privately." Morrison. I knew that name. He'd been involved in several questionable cases over the years. Rumors of evidence disappearing and charges being dropped for the right price. "You think he's dirty?" "I think your wife's been paying for protection," Tommy said. "If you'd gone to local police with this, Morrison would have made sure the case disappeared." That explained Gloria's confidence, her casual attitude about the affair. She thought she had insurance. "What's our next move?" I asked. "We go federal. This crossed state lines when they moved money offshore. FBI doesn't answer to local cops." That afternoon, I met with FBI agent Sarah Martinez in a coffee shop an hour outside town. I laid out everything: the financial fraud, the forged documents, Morrison's involvement. Agent Martinez listened intently, taking notes. Mr. Donahue, you've uncovered a significant operation. This isn't just about your marriage anymore. What do you mean? Marcus Webb and Ray Morrison have been under investigation for real estate fraud. Your wife may have stumbled into something much bigger than a simple affair. Agent Martinez explained that they've been tracking a network of corrupt officials and real estate agents who specialize in property theft and money laundering. Gloria and Marcus had unknowingly provided the missing pieces of their investigation. We need you to act normal for a few more days, Agent Martinez said. Can you do that? I nodded. What happens to Gloria? That depends on how cooperative she chooses to be. That evening, Gloria announced she was going out of town for a spa weekend with some girlfriends. She'd be leaving Thursday and returning Sunday. Sounds relaxing, I said, knowing full well she'd be meeting Marcus to finalize their escape plan. You don't mind? Gloria seemed surprised by my casual response. You deserve a break, I replied. Take all the time you need. I watched her pack her new luggage, including documents she thought I hadn't noticed. Bank account numbers, flight confirmations, even a fake passport with her photo and a different name. Thursday morning, I kissed Gloria goodbye and watched her drive away. She thought she was heading to freedom. Instead, she was driving straight into a federal investigation that would destroy everything she'd built with Marcus. I called Agent Martinez as soon as Gloria's car disappeared around the corner. She's moving, I said. Whatever you're planning, now's the time. Already in motion, Martinez replied. Mr. Donahue, you might want to stay close to your phone. This is going to get complicated very quickly. Friday afternoon, Agent Martinez called with the final details. Francis, we've intercepted communications between Gloria and Marcus. They're planning to meet tonight at the Ocean View restaurant on Harbor Street. They think they're celebrating their escape. That's 3 blocks from where my mother-in-law lives, I said. Perfect. We need witnesses for what comes next. I called Elizabeth and explained the plan. Her voice was steady despite everything we'd discovered about her daughter. Francis, I've been thinking about this all week. Gloria's father would be ashamed if he were alive to see what she's become. We raised her with values, but somewhere along the way, she lost them. Elizabeth, I need you to call Gloria and invite her to dinner tonight. Tell her you want to discuss something important about the family. She'll suspect something. Not if you mention you've been having chest pains and want to see her before any medical tests. She'll come. That evening, I arrived at Ocean View Restaurant to find Elizabeth already seated with Gloria's brother Michael and his wife Sarah. They looked nervous but determined. Gloria had agreed to dinner, thinking her mother was having health issues. At 7:30, Gloria walked in expecting a family medical crisis. Instead, she found me sitting at the table with her relatives and a stack of manila envelopes. The look on her face was priceless. Her confident smile evaporated instantly. Francis, what are you doing here? Gloria's voice cracked slightly. Sit down, I said calmly. We need to talk. Mom, what's going on? Gloria remained standing, her designer purse clutched against her chest like armor. Elizabeth spoke first. Gloria, Francis has shown me some very disturbing information about your recent activities. I placed the first envelope in front of each family member. Don't open them yet. I want Gloria to explain first. Explain what? Gloria's voice was getting higher, more defensive. Where you been getting money for your new lifestyle? I said quietly. The $200,000 you stole by forging my signature on loan documents. The color drained from Gloria's face. That's ridiculous. You're being paranoid again. Michael opened his envelope and gasped. Gloria, these are bank records. You really did this. I can explain, Gloria started, but I held up my hand. You told me not to be jealous when you went on your date, I said, my voice carrying across the restaurant. Well, I'm not jealous anymore. I'm just disappointed that 22 years of marriage meant so little to you. That's when she froze completely, realizing I knew everything. Agent Martinez appeared at our table, badge visible. Gloria Donahue, you're under arrest for bank fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. As the handcuffs clicked into place, Gloria finally looked at me with something resembling the woman I'd married. Francis, please. We can work this out. We can have, I replied, before you decided to destroy everything we built together. Saturday morning brought news that the entire operation was unraveling. Agent Martinez called while I was having coffee with Elizabeth, who'd insisted on staying close during the arrest aftermath. "Francis, we've arrested 6 people in the network, including Detective Morrison. Your wife's cooperation led U.S. to bank accounts in 3 different countries." "What did she tell you?" "Everything. Marcus Webb was running a sophisticated operation targeting small business owners across the Southeast. They'd been operating for 5 years before targeting you." Elizabeth set down her coffee cup. "Agent Martinez, how many families did they destroy?" 23 that we've identified so far. Your daughter's testimony is helping us contact all the victims." I felt sick thinking about other men who'd gone through what I experienced. Families torn apart by calculated deception. "There's something else," Agent Martinez continued. "Marcus had been planning to kill you, Francis. Make it look like a diving accident. Your wife refused to participate, which is why they accelerated the financial theft instead." The room went silent. Elizabeth grabbed my hand, tears in her eyes. "He was going to murder my son-in-law. The plan was to drain the accounts, eliminate Francis, and have Gloria inherit everything as the grieving widow. She'd have disappeared within a month with a new identity." I stared out the window of the harbor, where I'd spent 15 years building my business. "How close do they come?" "Marcus had already purchased the equipment needed to sabotage your diving gear. If you hadn't discovered the affair when you did, you'd probably be dead within the week." That afternoon, I visited Gloria in the county jail. She sat across from me in an orange jumpsuit, looking smaller and older than I'd ever seen her. "I never agreed to the murder plan," she said quietly. "That's why I tried to tell you about the affair. I thought if you divorced me, Marcus would leave you alone. You could have just told me the truth. I was scared. Marcus said if I betrayed him, he'd kill both of us." Gloria's voice broke. "I know that doesn't excuse what I did, but I was trapped." I studied my wife's face, looking for any trace of the woman I'd loved for 22 years. "The prosecutor said you might get 15 years if you cooperate fully," I said. "I know. Francis, I'm going to testify against all of them. It won't bring back what I destroyed, but maybe it will help the other families." As I left the jail, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not forgiveness exactly, but a kind of closure. Gloria had made terrible choices, but at least she'd drawn the line at murder. That evening, Tommy called with the final piece of the puzzle. "Francis, the FBI recovered most of your money. The offshore accounts are being frozen and the funds returned to victims. You might actually come out of this financially intact. What about Deep Blue Adventures? The business is yours. The forged mortgage is void, and the insurance company is covering the legal costs. You can rebuild." For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. 3 months after Gloria's arrest, I stood on the deck of my boat watching the sunrise over the Atlantic. Deep Blue Adventures was operating again, and bookings were actually stronger than before the scandal. Turns out people appreciate businesses run by honest men who've been tested by fire. Elizabeth had become an unexpected pillar of support. She'd moved into Gloria's old office at the dive center, helping manage bookings and customer relations. Her presence helped fill the void left by 22 years of shared partnership, even if that partnership had been built on lies. "Francis, you have a visitor," Elizabeth called from the office window. I looked up to see a woman in her 30s walking down the pier. Professional attire, confident stride, but something familiar about her face. "Mr. Donahue? I'm Rebecca Martinez, Agent Sarah Martinez's sister. I run a victims advocacy group for financial fraud cases." I shook her hand, noting the family resemblance. "What can I do for you?" "We're organizing a support network for people affected by Marcus Webb's operation. 23 families lost everything to that network. They need to hear from someone who survived it intact." The idea of helping other victims appealed to me. These men had gone through exactly what I'd experienced: the betrayal, the financial devastation, the questioning of every memory. What would that involve? Speaking at support meetings, sharing your story, showing them that recovery is possible. Many of these men are contemplating suicide. "Francis, they feel like failures." That afternoon, I attended my first support group meeting at a community center in Raleigh. 12 men, ages ranging from 35 to 60, all with the same haunted expression I'd seen in my mirror 3 months earlier. "Gentlemen, this is Francis Donahue," Rebecca said. His wife was part of the web network, but he managed to expose the operation and recover his assets. A man named David spoke first. How did you know something was wrong? I lived with my wife for 8 years and never suspected anything. I didn't know, I admitted. I got lucky. My wife got careless, and I had the right friends in the right places. But mostly, I refused to let the betrayal destroy my ability to think clearly. Another man, Robert, looked up from his hands. They took my construction company, my house, my kids' college funds. Everything I built over 15 years gone. The FBI recovered 70% of the stolen assets, I said. You'll get most of it back. But what about trust? Asked a third man. How do you ever believe in anyone again? That was the question I've been wrestling with myself. You don't start with trust, I said. You start with verification. You build trust slowly, with people who earn it through consistent actions over time. After the meeting, Robert approached me privately. Francis, I heard your mother-in-law helped expose her own daughter. That must have been difficult for everyone. Elizabeth chose what was right over what was easy, I replied. That's the kind of person you could trust, someone willing to do the hard thing when it matters. That evening, I called Elizabeth to tell her about the support group. Francis, I'm proud of you for helping those men, she said. Gloria destroyed a lot of lives, but you're helping rebuild them. We're helping rebuild them, I corrected. I couldn't do this without your support. As I hung up, I realized something important. The network of lies that had surrounded my marriage was being replaced by a network of truth and mutual support. That felt like genuine progress. 6 months after the arrests, I received an unexpected phone call that would change everything again. Francis, this is Captain Jennifer Walsh from the Coast Guard Investigative Service. We need your expertise on a case involving underwater evidence recovery. What kind of case? Marcus Webb wasn't just running financial schemes. We've discovered he was using diving operations to smuggle drugs through coastal waters. We need someone with your technical diving skills and investigative experience. The irony was perfect. The skills Marcus had tried to destroy were now being used to expose his broader criminal activities. That afternoon, I met Captain Walsh at the Coast Guard station. She showed me underwater footage of sealed containers attached to artificial reefs, the same reefs where I'd been teaching diving for 15 years. We believe Webb's network has been using recreational dive sites to transfer contraband, Walsh explained. They'd hide packages underwater during legitimate diving excursions, then retrieve them later. How can I help? We need someone who knows these waters intimately and can spot unusual underwater modifications. Someone the local diving community trusts. I studied the footage, recognizing several sites where I'd taken customers. The thought that drug smugglers had been operating in my territory while I was obliviously teaching families to explore marine life made my blood boil. When do we start? The investigation took 3 weeks. Using Deep Blue Adventures as cover, I guided Coast Guard divers to suspicious sites while maintaining normal business operations. We discovered 17 hidden caches containing cocaine, heroin, and illegal weapons. The final breakthrough came when we found Marcus's personal diving logs hidden in a waterproof container. They detailed 5 years of smuggling operations, identifying corrupt harbor officials, and documenting bribes paid to local law enforcement. Francis, this evidence is going to destroy the entire coastal smuggling network, Captain Walsh said as we surfaced from the final dive. You've helped us solve crimes spanning multiple states. That evening, Elizabeth and I sat on the dive center's deck, watching the sunset paint the water golden. Your father will be proud, Elizabeth said. You turned something terrible into an opportunity to help others. Gloria's father, you mean? No, Francis. Your father. He raised a man who fights for what's right, even when it's difficult. I thought about that for a long time. My own father had died when I was in the Navy, before he could see me build Deep Blue Adventures or marry Gloria. Maybe he would have been proud of how I'd handled the crisis. Elizabeth, I've been thinking about expanding the business, adding a victims advocacy component, working with law enforcement on marine investigations. That sounds perfect, she said. You've found your true calling. 2 weeks later, the local newspaper ran a feature story about Deep Blue Adventures' role in exposing the smuggling network. The headline read, Local dive instructor helps Coast Guard bust multi-state drug ring. Bookings doubled overnight. Apparently, customers wanted to learn diving from someone who'd proven his character under pressure. More importantly, I'd found a new sense of purpose. The betrayal that had nearly destroyed me had actually revealed strengths I didn't know I possessed. 1 year after Gloria's arrest, I stood in a federal courthouse watching her receive her final sentence. 15 years for fraud, conspiracy, and racketeering. Marcus Webb got life without parole for murder conspiracy and drug trafficking. Detective Morrison received 25 years for corruption and evidence tampering. Elizabeth sat beside me, her hand steady on my arm as the judge read the verdict. Her daughter's choices had destroyed their family, but Elizabeth had chosen justice over blood loyalty. The court recognizes that Mrs. Donahue's cooperation was instrumental in dismantling this criminal network, Judge Harrison said. However, the severity of these crimes demands substantial punishment. Gloria looked back at us one final time before the bailiff led her away. I saw neither the woman I'd married nor the stranger who'd betrayed me, just someone who'd made choices that destroyed multiple lives, including her own. After the sentencing, Agent Martinez approached us in the courthouse hallway. "Francis, the final asset recovery is complete. Between the offshore accounts and seized properties, we've recovered 87% of the stolen funds for all victims. What about the other 13%? Gone. But that's still the highest recovery rate we've ever achieved in a case this complex." That afternoon, Elizabeth and I returned to Deep Blue Adventures. The business had grown beyond anything I'd imagined during my marriage. We now operated 3 boats, employed 8 dive instructors, and had contracts with both the Coast Guard and the FBI for underwater investigations. "Francis, I have something to tell you," Elizabeth said as we watched the sunset from the office deck. "I've been accepted to the Police Academy's Civilian Investigator Program." I stared at her in surprise. "Elizabeth, you're 62 years old." "Exactly. I have life experience these young investigators lack. Plus, someone needs to help families navigate the aftermath of financial crimes." The idea of my former mother-in-law becoming a criminal investigator seemed surreal, but it also made perfect sense. She'd proven her integrity when it mattered most. "Does this mean you're leaving Deep Blue Adventures?" "Not leaving. Expanding our services. Imagine a dive center that also provides victim advocacy and financial crime consultation." That evening, I called Rebecca Martinez to discuss integrating victim services into our business model. "Francis, you're creating something unique," Rebecca said. "A business that survived criminal attack and transformed into a force for justice. That's powerful." As I hung up the phone, I realized that Gloria's betrayal had accidentally created something valuable. Deep Blue Adventures wasn't just a diving business anymore. It was proof that honest people could survive sophisticated attacks and emerge stronger. The marriage might have been fake, but what I'd built from its ashes was completely real. 2 years after Gloria's conviction, I stood on the deck of our newest boat, the Truth Seeker, watching my newest dive student practice equipment checks. She was nervous but determined, exactly the attitude needed for both diving and recovery from betrayal. Her name was Amanda Wells, a marine biologist who'd lost her research funding to a romance scammer 6 months earlier. She joined our victim support program and decided to learn diving as part of her healing process. "Mr. Donahue, I'm still afraid I'll panic underwater," Amanda said, adjusting her mask. "Fear is healthy," I replied. "It keeps you alert. The goal isn't to eliminate fear, but to function effectively despite it." Elizabeth emerged from the cabin, carrying updated certification paperwork. At 63, she'd completed both Police Academy training and advanced diving certification. Our business now offered something unprecedented: underwater investigation services combined with victim advocacy. "Amanda, you're going to love the reef system," Elizabeth said. "Francis found 3 new artificial reefs last month during a Coast Guard investigation. Those reefs had been created using confiscated materials from Marcus Webb's smuggling operation. Turning instruments of crime into habitats for marine life felt like poetic justice." As we descended into the crystal-clear water, I watched Amanda's confidence grow with each breath. Underwater, pretense becomes impossible. You either trust your equipment and training, or you don't survive. After the dive, Amanda sat on the boat deck with tears in her eyes. "I haven't felt that peaceful in months," she said. "Down there, nothing else mattered except the present moment. That's why I love this work," I replied. The ocean doesn't care about your past. It only responds to who you are right now. That evening, Elizabeth and I reviewed applications for our new fellowship program, offering free diving instruction and business mentorship to financial crime victims. 43 applications this month, Elizabeth said. Francis, we're changing lives. We're giving people tools to rebuild. I corrected. They're doing the real work. My phone buzzed with a text from Agent Martinez. Francis, the web network trial in Florida resulted in 17 more convictions. Your testimony was crucial. Thank you for seeing this through. As I typed my response, I reflected on how completely my life had changed. 2 years ago, I'd been a betrayed husband discovering his wife's infidelity. Now I was running a business that helped others recover from similar betrayals while providing critical services to law enforcement. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. Elizabeth answered it and returned with an envelope. It's from the State Attorney General's office, she said. Inside was an official commendation recognizing Deep Blue Adventures for exceptional service in combating organized crime and supporting victims of financial fraud. Look at this, Elizabeth said, pointing to the letterhead. They're recommending us for a federal contract with the Justice Department. I studied the document, thinking about the journey that had brought us here. Gloria's betrayal had nearly destroyed me, but it had also revealed capabilities I never knew I possessed. Elizabeth, do you ever regret helping me expose Gloria? She looked at me with the same steady gaze that had sustained me through the darkest period of my life. Francis, I regret that my daughter became someone who needed exposing, but I'll never regret choosing what was right. As we watched the last light fade over the harbor, I felt something I thought was lost forever, absolute certainty about the people in my life and the work we were doing together. The water had taught me that trust, like diving, requires both courage and careful preparation. But when you find the right people and the right purpose, the depths become a place of discovery rather than danger.